Is it recording? Hi. Let me get on camera here. All right, we're on the lesson comparing adjectives. I believe it's 128 if I look on what's supposed to be Tuesday's lesson, but we're going to start off reviewing the 3 different forms of adjectives when we're comparing. Remember, we had positive, which is referring to one thing. Comparative, when we're talking about 2 things. And then when we're talking about 3 or more, we have what's called the superlative. So positive, comparative, and superlative. So going over each of these, let's see if you can identify which of those is being used. Slower. You should remember that that is comparative. Fastest, superlative, and red. It's just positive. It's just talking about something being red. How about happy? Again, positive. Most beautiful. We've got a 3-syllable word that will never have an ER or an EST after it. Most beautiful is the superlative, and then more studious, comparative. So you should have those. While I erase this and get the picture set up, go ahead and do write D on the bottom of page 209. We're going to do that just on the bottom of the paper. You don't have to waste another piece of notebook paper. Write one sentence using the comparative degree of little. Go ahead and do that. Figure out what would be the comparative degree of little, and then write a sentence. While you do that, I'm going to try to plug this in, and it doesn't want to cooperate. Hopefully your sentence, there we go, hopefully your sentence has the form littler, and you used correct capitalization and punctuation. So a sentence using littler would be in the comparative degree, not little and not littlest. Page 210, let's go over using adjectives correctly, and then we'll get to this part together, but let's look in the blue first for some good reminders. Avoid a double comparison. What does that mean? Well, it means we don't use ER and more together, and we don't use EST and most together. Only one form should be used. Look at the examples. Incorrect. Our new house is more smaller than our old house. Little kids do that all the time until we learn the correct form is just to use one of those. Our new house is smaller than our old house. Incorrect. That's the most biggest watermelon I could find. It sounds wrong to you because you've learned we don't use those 2 things together. This is the biggest watermelon I could find. In the bold print, it says when comparing a person with a group of which that person is a member, use other or else. Okay. So notice, incorrect would be Ella is friendlier than any girl in her class. It doesn't sound right. Why? Because when you're talking about a group that you are a part of or that someone is a part of, you need to specify a little bit by adding something like Ella is friendlier than any other girl in her class, because Ella can't be friendlier than herself, right? So you can't say she's friendlier than any girl in the class, then she'd be friendlier than herself, and how is that possible? But if you say she's friendlier than any other girl, you know she's part of the group, but it's comparing her to the rest. Incorrect. Kayla is more studious than anyone in her class. Again, Kayla can't be more studious than herself. Okay. Brianna might try to be more studious than herself, but it's not possible, right? So Kayla can't do it either. However, Kayla is more studious than anyone else in her class, comparing her to the rest of the group that she's a part of. So be careful when we're using comparisons in that way. The next bold print statement says use fewer or fewest with items that can be counted. I mentioned this in a previous lesson. Use less or least with a quantity when we're talking about measurements like liquids, or when we're talking about amounts as in money. We wouldn't say there's fewest money. You would say there's the least money, okay, or the least amount of that when you're comparing something that can be counted, fewer and fewest, with something that's a general amount or quantity of a substance, then you're talking about less or least. Them is never used as an adjective. It tells us to use those instead. So incorrect. Them boys are all good ball players. That's not correct grammar, and it makes you sound like you've never had a teacher teach you grammar. And I know you've had several, I mean you're in 6th grade, teach you this correctly, but just a reminder, them boys, correct. What is correct? Those boys. Those boys are good ball players. So now taking that information, let's look at crossing out the incorrect form in these parentheses. We just went over this. Them field peas? No. No, no, no. Those field peas are delicious. This would be an opinion because I don't like peas, but maybe those field peas are delicious to you. Here we go. All right, we'll put that. I don't agree with that statement, but at least it's grammatically correct. Number 2, would you say there were fewer people or there are less people attending the meeting? Well, hopefully you remember we can count people. That's not a quantity, so we would want to use fewer. There were fewer people attending the meeting today. And sadly, this is a very true statement in the strange times that we're going through right now. How about number 3? You should remember, we don't want to use most and brightest together. We just choose one. And since bright is a 1-syllable adjective, it's just the EST. We wouldn't say most bright. The diamond is the brightest of precious stones. It also happens to be my birthstone, so just random fact. Number 4, never seen. Well, if we can't use most and EST together, we can't certainly use more or ER together. We wouldn't say more wiser. That would definitely prove you were not more wiser, right? Never seem wiser than the people you are with. That's just good manners. How about number 5? Remember, money is talking about a general quantity or amount. Yes, you can count it, but you never say monies when you're talking about an amount, right? Unless you're talking about different kinds of monies, like a yen and a pound and a dollar and things like that. It's a quantity. We don't use fewer. Fewer money doesn't even sound right to you because you've already learned how to speak with quantities. We have less money than we had last year. And the reason for that, we just went over the rule, is because fewer is with specific things that you can count, like people. But when we're talking about money, time, or quantity amounts like measurements of liquid measures, things like that, cups of flour, milk, any type of those things that you measure in a quantity rather than counting, right? We never have 3 flours. If you're baking, you might have 3 cups of flour, but it's not specifically counting those individual things. We have less money. So go ahead and do 6 through 10. Some of you have probably already gone ahead. The rest of you pause, do 6 through 10. We'll go over the answers. I'm going to scroll them up so we can see them more easily. And yes, it's a little curved because my book was curved. All right, let's go over these answers. Jackson is smarter than anyone in his class. Impossible, and can't be smarter than himself. But he can be smarter than anyone else. Number 7, I am doing the bestest doesn't make sense. Remember, this is one of your irregular forms. Good, better, best. We don't have best, best, or bestest. I am doing the best work. I really enjoyed listening to them classical recordings. No. Those classical recordings. Some people think they have fewer opportunities than others or less opportunities. Well, we can count the number of opportunities. It's not a quantity. Fewer opportunities than other would be the correct answer. And then number 10, Alexis plays chess better than anyone on her chess team. It's interesting if she plays better than herself. Would make sense. So she plays chess better than anyone else on her chess team. Turn the page to page 211. I believe it's the very next one, so you don't have to turn anything. But I need to get to the next picture on here. So here we go. And I'll zoom in so we can see it a little better. Aw, Emma would like this picture. It's got a horse in it. Okay. Let me erase these beautiful marks there. Hopefully you can see everything. The directions say the following sentences contain errors. So we need to cross out incorrect words and make corrections where necessary. All right, so sentence 1 says we played better than any team in the tournament. Well, if you're in the tournament, you can't play better than yourselves. So what would we have to do? We're going to have to add something in. Hopefully you recognized, here's our little caret, so we can insert a word here. There's nothing to cross out, but if we add the word other, we played better than any other team in the tournament. Now we've got a good sentence. Number 2, there is fewer food in this package than in that one. Did you